Okay, Cheryl, just mute yourself because I think we hear. Okay. Someone just joined us. Welcome. Okay, let's start. So just a review from last week. We spoke about depression, anxiety, all these negative things that bring us down. According to Torah, it's forbidden. Why? It's not actual forbidden to be sad, but it's not good because it's going to lead you to sin. Sadness and anxiety is a lack of an emotion. It doesn't let you feel. And because it doesn't let you feel, from that it brings you to the Yetzer Hara always will start with making you sad in order to bring you to do a sin. And in order to serve God, you have to be always joyous. You always have to serve Hashem with joy. So the Alter Rebbe gives us little tips, not only little tips, real tools of how to deal with these sadness. And he tells us different kind of sadness we can have, because every sadness has to be dealt with differently. So there's the first sadness that comes from things we cannot control, that are lack of essentials, health, children, money. These things you have to work on your faith in God and believe that really it comes from somewhere good, that everything that God does is good. And even if it doesn't seem good from us, things that are mysteriously good, that things that are negative come from a mysterious part of God. They're a goodness from God that we cannot understand. It's above our understanding. So when we look at it, it will look negative, it will look painful, it will look dark, and we could feel upset and sad and complain about it. Yes, we could be upset about it, but we have to change our perspective and work on our perspective. The avoda that's going to need is on how we see it, on how our faith with Hashem will be, on working on ourselves to believe that really it comes from a higher good. And this, of course, is something very personal. It's not something you can tell to someone else. It's a very personal thing. Yesterday, I went to visit a friend of ours who just lost their son, 6-year-old son. It was very, very sad.
Quoi?
Yeah.
A friend that lost his son?
A friend that lost her 6-year-old son.
No, je te comprends.
And when I went to I was so nervous to go see her because you don't know what to say. How do you deal with it? And I didn't say anything, and she said something. She's like, people are telling me you're so lucky. You had a special son, that came to you for you were, and she's like, I don't want to be special. I want my son. I don't want to have, So these are things you can't tell someone. That's her own personal work she will have to do, which I actually want to dedicate this class. Liloy Nishma Daniel Chai Ben Esther Rivka, a little sweet child of 6. He was actually at our Chabad house. He came for Hanukkah. For a Hanukkah party. Nama, her brother, her little brother.
Yamna?
Nama, la copine de Bela, So I know the mother very well. Anyways, sweet little boy. So we'll dedicate this class for him. And he was very, very joyous. Actually, very happy boy. And all he was born with, little delays, which had nothing to do why he passed away. He passed away for another reason. But he was a very happy child. So this is what we're going to learn today is how to be happy. So this is the first sadness, is things we cannot control, that we really have to dig deep and work hard in order to find why it happened and the ultimate goal.
Nachman, they are happy all
exactly.
The time. It's like my brother is a Nachman, he does own a car all the time.
Yeah.
That's the car.
So the Breslev is also Chassidus. It also comes from Chassidus, which is about Shem Tov, which teaches us to be happy, but here the Tanya gives practical tools of how to be happy, because it's easy to say be happy all the time, but how do you do it? So here the Tanya is more practical and teaches us how to do it. Then there's things we can be upset about our past, things that upset us that we did in the past that we're not happy with, we feel guilty all the time. Oh, why did we do this? Why? And the Alter Rebbe says the past, how do you deal with it? First of all, just know it comes from the evil inclination. And it's just there to bring you down. And it will come in the wrong moments when you're not supposed to think about it. Whenever it comes, say, wait, I know you're here to remind me of my past, but please don't, I'm not thinking about you right now. I will think about it later. And set aside a moment to think about it and to deal with it. And it's funny because I never even heard of this. And yesterday I was doing some yoga, and I had these thoughts that kept on nagging at me, like for the over Shabbos, things that were like bothering me. And when you do yoga, like suddenly all the thoughts come. It's like you let go, and they came, and I said, okay, you know what? Now's the moment to think about it. I let these thoughts, whatever, sad, negative, whatever it was, come over me, think about it, and then accept that, I can't do anything about it. And it goes. You can't ignore them. It's thoughts you cannot ignore. Some things, they will nag at you and they won't stop nagging at you. So just find a moment when is a good time to think about. So that's what the Alter Rebbe says. Anything of the past, any guilt like that you did in the past, don't let it, whenever it comes, don't think about it right away. Push it to a time when you're ready to think about, meditate about it, and then they're going to go away. The third thing that can make you sad is shame of your current state. Things that you cannot change. You're currently upset about. You're ashamed of who you are, or things that are very current, that are not from the past, but are present. You're present who you are right now. So those, the Alter Rebbe says, ignore completely. Like they're not going to help you. It's not just ignore. Just know that the way you were created, okay? Because it's talking specifically to a Benoni who, no matter what, he tries to be connected to God. He will always wake up with evil within him. He will always feel the evil within him, the impulses, his natural human impulses. He will always feel them. He can't get rid of it. And that can bring him to depression. The Alter Rebbe says, don't. Hashem created you for this. He didn't create you a tzaddik who does not see, who only sees godliness and will never be able to sin. He created you with that evil within you in order for you to fight it and overcome it. And every time you overcome it, you bring more light. So your whole purpose is to be like that. Don't be ashamed of yourself. Don't be ashamed of your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are your biggest strength. Every time you're able to overcome anything you battle and you struggle with, you are bringing more light. You are conquering something that's much bigger than what is felt. So don't be ashamed of that. So this is a kind of sadness that's 100% from the evil inclination to bring you down even lower. And what does sadness do? Sadness makes you feel very heavy. Takes away your energy. That's the whole point. And you need energy. You need to be light. You can't be heavy. In order to go on with life, you need that. So you can't let yourself be ashamed of your current state. Instead, change it and realize that this is how you are supposed to be created. This is your whole purpose. The whole purpose is to have that struggle. And not to fall into that struggle, but to be able to conquer it. And every little effort you do to conquer it, even the effort of being aware of this struggle you have within you, is already a point for you that will bring you to a better place. The fourth is negative thoughts during prayer. Prayer is a time when you're intimate with God. It's the most special time, when it's the only time a Benoni could feel a real love towards God, is during prayer. Because it's so special, the evil inclination will know that this is a special time and will bother you just when you start to pray, or just when he sees you're really connected and you're really into your prayer. It's going to bring you these negative thoughts, all these inappropriate, just to stop you from praying.
But not all the time. Sometimes you can focus.
Yeah, so usually if it doesn't happen, it means you're probably not that concentrated. It should, nor unless you're a tzaddik. But I think, of what I understand, right, is that when you're really praying hard, it should come. You'll have these thoughts. You'll have all the thoughts you're not supposed to be thinking will come up. Okay. Like Did I pay the bills? Did I, everything you're not supposed to think about will come during prayer.
But if you know how to meditate, you'll learn how to focus. If you know how to focus.
So with that, exactly, with these thoughts coming, you are still able to focus. Exactly. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says. But a Benoni might be saddened by that, might say, look, I'm doing everything right. I'm trying to pray. And now I have these negative thoughts. Maybe there's something wrong with me. But the Alter Rebbe is telling you, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's on purpose. The evil will come just then because the evil inclination knows that this is a special moment. And this we can relate to in any time that there's something really good that's about to happen, that we're about to do. And we have like these negative thoughts that are stopping us, the doubts that are coming. Don't listen to them. They're there just to stop you. And don't be saddened by them. Because whenever the evil inclination feels like you're going to be doing something really good, it's going to bring in your thoughts. That's what we're talking about. Anything that's bringing you to your purpose or to do something really special, you're going to have things blocking you all the time. All the time.
To make it difficult to.
Exactly. It says that when
you want to pray, you have like last minute. I have to do this and I have to do that, and you have to pray also. But I have to do a thousand things, and it happens.
It says also another, not in the Tanya, but it reminds me of when a bride and groom are engaged. It's a very special time, and in Torah, it's one part where they say, "Be careful of the evil that want to break you apart," because a marriage is so special. Two opposites that are coming together and to serve a higher purpose. There's going to be things that come in the way, and you see it all the time. Things coming in the way in order to stop those marriages. So always they say, like, that's a very special time. Please be careful. Like the last week before a chatan and kala are getting married, the week before that, they always have to be accompanied by a person. Mm-hmm. Like it's a real thing.
Well, Ashkenazis, they don't see each other for the whole week.
Yeah, we also. I mean, Spartan.
Non, nous c'est la veille du aîné. À partir du aîné, juste le aîné.
Okay, so no, la semaine avant le mariage, you have to, the chatan and the kala have to have someone who walk with them everywhere. They can't do, just in case something happens. They don't see each other.
Pour les Ashkenazes.
Oh, wow.
So those are negative prayers, negative thoughts that come during prayers. Prayer is a very intimate time, and it's going to come to stop you to have that intimacy and that love towards God. And don't be saddened by it. Just know that you're doing something right. Okay? This week, so now we understand we have tools of how to deal with our sadness, our anxiety. All these are things that will bring us down. Now the Alter Rebbe brings another thing. He brings timtum halev, which means dullness of the heart. It's not sadness, but it's similar in what sense? In the sense that it both sadness and timtum halev will make you feel very heavy and will take away energy. Both of them, okay? So sadness will make you sad and will take away the energy and can bring you really low, like feel really low and to even, stop living. Timtum halev is different. Timtum halev will make you not feel anything. But both of them, sadness and timtum halev, are both the absence of feelings. That's why someone who is sad cannot love. When you're sad, you cannot love. But the difference is that timtum halev has zero feelings at all. No feelings at all. It blocks you. It's like a shell that goes over your heart and stops you from feeling and will take away your motivation. And the difference is that, let me just find the difference. I wrote it somewhere. So, the difference is that sadness comes from worry, from concern, from fear. But timtum comes from complacency. What is that? It's when you don't care. You don't care and you're comfortable where you are. You said, I worked hard all my life. I'm good. I'm happy now. So that's timtum halev. It's not someone who was always without feelings. There's certain people who are not that refined and can't feel anything about, art and different things. We're talking about someone who had feelings, and then said, okay, we're good, like just stopped really caring and fighting, and created the shell where they don't feel anymore. This, the Alter Rebbe says, is very dangerous. Not to feel is very dangerous. He brings in a story of, not a story, of a halacha, okay? Obviously, we can't relate to it, but it's just interesting, of someone who is praying during tefillah, okay? And it's obviously someone who's very high, and they see a snake coming. If the snake comes, the halacha says, don't continue praying, don't run away, because it's talking about the Amidah. But if it's a scorpion, run away. Why? The snake, when he bites, his poison is fiery. The scorpion, when he bites, his poison is cold. And what is worse? Cold is worse than fire. Fire, even if it's, which really, what was it comparing to? It says when you're praying and the Yetzer Hara comes in a form of a snake, don't run away, because he'll just bring you fire, and it's just that fire to sin, let's say. You can use it for your tefillah. But a scorpion, if he comes in a way of a scorpion where he takes away your motivation, run away from that. Don't let that evil come within you. The evil that makes you cold, that makes you not feel, is worse than an evil that is fiery and excited and full of energy. Now, what does it come from? It comes from your ego. It's an ego that is created from saying, I'm good, I'm happy with my life. This ego creates a shell that covers the heart, and your heart cannot feel anymore. You have no more access to your nefesh neshama, your nefesh elokit, your godly soul. And it takes away all the energy to do anything. You have no motivation to do anything. What do you do then? Okay? What do you do then? The Alter Rebbe tells us, gives us an example of a log. There's fire. Who's used to lighting fires here?
C'est quoi log?
Log is in bush. Okay, a big log. You try to light it, it won't work. But if you crush it and you make it into small pieces, it's going to catch on. But one big log won't be able to catch on fire. So too, our shell that's around our heart is like that big log. It won't catch on fire. You won't be able to motivate it to do Torah and mitzvot. But if you crush it, if you break it, that's when you'll be able to light it on fire. So the Alter Rebbe tells you to do that. But what does that mean in a practical sense? So the Alter Rebbe continues to say that the shell, the ego, is like darkness. Just like darkness has no substance of its own, that the minute you open a light or you light a candle, the darkness disappears. So too is ego. Ego is based on false reality. It has no substance of its own. It's this false reality. It's klipa that creates its own reality, these own beliefs, and makes you feel a certain way that's not really true. Just like fear also. You have these huge fears that paralyzes you, that stops you from doing something. The minute you do it, the fear reduces and becomes small, and suddenly you can do it. So too, that ego gives you this feeling that you don't feel anything. Gives you this feeling that it really exists and that you're not interested in anything godliness. You have no motivation towards godliness. Okay, and this we could all relate. One day we'll be super inspired by something, and the next day we can read and try, but nothing will help. It just does not inspire us. So how do we do it? We break it. How do we break it? By screaming at it and by bringing it. This is again a personal work. We have to scream at ourselves, at our ego, and put it into place. And when you scream at it, it will reduce it and make it realize that it's not really existent. When your neshama Nefesh Elokit, stands up and fights for itself and says, no, you're false, you really want, and it brings you different, depending on what's the struggle that you're struggling, that you really want to feel, and you use your anger, okay? Anger should never be used into anger is really wrong. The only time you use anger is when you're fighting your evil inclination. You have to be really angry with it and fight it, and that's how you break it. Okay. Now, again, this is it's one of the harshest chapters of the Tanya. It says that today we don't really use it. We're not able to crush ourselves. Okay. So we can reach the same thing through joy, with a lot of joy, with a lot of simcha. Even if you have no feelings, you don't feel happy. When it says fake it till you make it, what does that mean? Fake it till you make it? By using this overabundance of an emotion, okay, a lot of joy, even if you don't feel it, but you're going to remove that ego that's within you that makes you feel like it really exists and that blocks you from feeling. It will have the power to remove that. Okay,
so when you feel ego is coming over, you increase joy.
You could. So today the Rebbe, our Rebbe says to increase joy and to increase positive. That's the way we fight our evil. That's the way we fight our klipa. But in the Tanya, it says to crush it, to break it, to scream at it, okay, until it disappears. And because it's like darkness, it doesn't really have a substance of its own, it will disappear.
Sorry, I have a question. Or at least I find that it's contradictory in terms that if you want to break it, you're going to be hard on yourself.
Beautiful.
Hard on yourself makes you that shameful part, that sadness part, that etc. So it's like a loop and a catch-22.
Beautiful. You brought the question to what we were going to learn. Okay. So Yael asked a very interesting question. Okay, and this is why Timtum Alev is brought over here. Why is Timtum Alev with sadness? So besides that, it has similar side effects, that it makes you feel heavy and less motivated. It will also bring you to the work to remove Timtum will bring you to sadness. So by crushing yourself and breaking yourself, it will bring you to sadness. The Alter Rebbe says this, and he explains, and he says, this is where we learn that sadness can bring you to joy, that certain sadness have a positive in it. Okay, we learned that in if you look back at your papers, it says Bechol etzev yemutar. In every sadness, there is a profit. So, the regular sadness all sadness comes from klipa. Sadness in itself is something bad. But there's two kinds of sadness. There's a sadness that comes from the real klipa that you cannot change, which drains the energy out, which is lifeless. Sadness which resembles death. That sadness you don't approach. You keep away. You try to use the tools in order to bring out joy and not be sad. That sadness is the opposite of joy, and it's not only the opposite, it will only drain the energy and bring you down. The sadness that will come from breaking your ego, from breaking your Timtum Alev, is a sadness that you're humble, you have humility. Once you have humility, that means there's some good. It's a sadness that comes from Klipat Noga. In the previous chapters, in the beginning, we learned there's two different Klipa. Klipa is the shell, is the opposite of godliness. It's klipa means a shell, right? In Hebrew, it means a shell. It's anything that covers the light of God. And it says those things we usually don't touch. There's klipa. There's klipa. Shalash klipas and atmes, which is the 3 levels of klipa, which you can't elevate. That's where non-kosher comes from, or anything that's not allowed. It means because it has a klipa in it that you cannot elevate. You're just going to get chained inside of it. It has a light in it that you cannot access it. But then there's the regular things that are physical that you can't see God in it. These are klipat noga. All these things are klipat noga. They have some good in it. And because they have some good in it, when you use it for the good, you're able to elevate it. So this sadness that comes from after you broke yourself, you made yourself humble, You broke that ego that surrounded your heart. It's a sadness. Wow, I feel so bad about myself. You kind of, what happens when you break yourself is you lose your identity. You don't know who you are. You used to feel a certain way. You used to think, I'm not someone who likes anything godly. I'm not someone spiritual. I like this. And suddenly you crushed yourself and you broke it and you lost your identity. So this sadness is a good sadness because it will make you find your real identity, which is your godly spark. It says that a tzaddik only identifies with his godly soul because that's all he feels. But regular people, we identify with our animal soul. We identify with our desires and our animal instincts. But it's truly not, it's not really our true identity. When we are able to crush that klipa that covers our soul, that ego that stops us from feeling, that ego that brings us to sadness. Ego, by the way, is one of the source of sadness. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to crush that and really realize that it's all false and that it's not really who you are, you're going to be sad from it because you're going to lose your identity. You're going to be like, okay, who am I? I was just, you have a broken heart. What does it mean to have a broken heart? It means you don't know who you are anymore. And that's from that sadness. This is a sadness that you can have a profit. And that's where you're able to finally connect to your true identity, which is your godly spark, your godly soul that truly wants to connect to God.
That's the hardest then.
It's
being humble.
It's very really hard. It's a hard work. It's a hard work. And
I know I'm not humble.
none of us are humble. And to crush yourself it seems very hard, okay? And the chapter 31 actually, it says that besides, so chapter 30 told us how we break by screaming using anger, right? Mm-hmm. Now chapter 31 says something very beautiful. It talks about once you understand the struggle of different people, you know that you have your struggle. And you can be like, oh, wow, you can start judging other people, right? How do you become humble? How do you become humble? Is when you understand that every single person has different struggle. And their struggles will be different based on their nature and their nurture. Remember we were talking about that? How they were created and also how they were nurtured. If someone is surrounded, if this person was surrounded by people who were doing bad stuff all the time, could you expect him to be good? No. But the little effort he did, when you see that person who grew up with parents who were abusive and addicted and he's a little better, even if he's not like you, who was brought up in a different environment, his effort is so much more greater than you, who didn't do anything because you happen to have a good environment. And the Alter Rebbe, this chapter goes and tells you how if you have so many strong points where you are connected to God and you want to connect to God and you want to learn, but you're not learning as much as you should, then you are worse than the person who's the lowest of the lowest because you don't know his effort he's doing. When you understand that it's not results, but efforts, this can bring you to a humility. So it's really a work inside of you that you have to do to realize that every person has different struggles. Every person has different environments, and we don't know their efforts they did to be who they are. This can bring us to a certain point of humility, and also not to feel so good about yourself that, oh, look what I did. What did you do? You could have done so much more. Mm-hmm. So this humility can also break away that shell, that ego that was created and stops you from feeling and being inspired. Ego, it says ego is the thing that makes people miserable. Anyone who has egos will always end up being miserable because
we all have, no?
We all have. So that's why
everybody with different level.
Everyone with different level, and that's why many times we'll be like, oh, we'll be upset about different things because we expect to have certain things in life, And when we remove that ego, you'll be just thankful to have what you have, you know, gratefulness. Ego should be replaced by being grateful. And yes, it's an inner work, and very important. In this parak, chapter 21, a very famous saying that's brought in the Tanya: from the forest itself comes the handle to the axe. What does that mean?
The handle to the axe.
From the forest itself comes the handle to the axe. When the trees were created, God created also barzel, which is like aluminum. Is barzel aluminum, or it's a metal? The metals, yeah. He created the metals, and when the trees saw that, they started trembling. They're like, "You're gonna destroy us." And the barzel, the metal, said, "Don't worry. Without you, we can't destroy you." Why? The handle of the axe is wooden.
It's made of wood.
So for someone to be able to crush themselves is only with, you have to, no one could crush you unless you allow it to be crushed, okay? So yes, sometimes we're going to have different things in life that will bring us down and could bring us to that humility, that humbleness. But normally it's a work that we want to do ourselves, and that we shouldn't allow anyone unless we give that handle and allow ourselves to be broken in order to go to a higher place. And yes, someone who thinks, you know, in education, again, back to education, was it with you we were talking? I don't know if it was with you, with someone who they used to want to crush the student in order to make them better students, but it's a work that's only personal. It's not a teacher that should do it. It's not a parent that should do it. It's a personal work that even today,
and you can ruin a kid that
for
way.
sure you can ruin it. It's the handle from the axe should come from ourselves. We should allow, okay, this is time for me to crush myself a little in order to feel humble and to realize and to bring out that light, that godliness that's hidden from that shell.
Or be able to say something to someone who we see is just in that spirals and doesn't realize where they're at.
Are we able to say something? That's a good question.
Because there are people out there, you know, that they will never ever see how they are truly, because they're out there, they're happy, like you said, their ego.
They're not happy. They're complacency. That means they don't.
Yes.
They don't want to change.
Exactly.
They don't. But they're not happy people, especially.
But they don't realize it. They don't see it. So aren't we allowed, if we see that it's just going somewhere, that it would be even darker, to try and say something, not to change them, not to make them, not impose on them, but just open our mouth to have.
From my experience, those are the worst people. You say something, you're just gonna be bashed. And I don't. So from what I understood in chapter 31, it's you shouldn't. From the forest itself comes a handle to the axe. That means that person should do it themselves. And if they don't, Hashem is going to bring it. You know, unfortunately, sometimes we're put through challenges, and only after we realize that challenge was to bring us to a better and higher place.
If you're close to the person, if it's your family, like sister, brother,
but
kids,
even I would say,
I mean,
to tell the truth, the way
moi je trouve de les réveiller, de leur faire prendre conscience.
I don't think by
prendre conscience, the job they'll do it, but to make them aware.
Aware, but we're not there to break them. We're not there to break them. What we could do again is through joy and through love. It can also break through to that.
Tu sais, c'est le rôle du mentor. Les mentors.
But breaking, mais casse pas les personnes. That's the Tanya says clearly, you don't crush. This is a personal work.
Même nous, on ne devrait pas se casser. Ça, c'est un truc, je suis pas d'accord.
Alors, so chapter 31 is
se casser. C'est quoi
ça? So se casser. Today we don't do it.
Today we don't do it, but you're still teaching us.
We are still teaching us because it's an interesting concept, but yes, it's a very harsh concept, and it's not something that today we have to work. Yes.
Parce que les autres se chargent de nous casser dans la vie.
Yeah. So I believe that today we don't have to do that work, but at least we can understand the work, even if we don't do it, and we can do it a different way by having a lot of joy when you're feeling down, when you're being brought down, when you don't feel anything, even you don't feel inspired. put yourself in situation of joy, of abundance, of goodness. The Rebbe's motto was when they're go give, go. If you don't want,
Go help.
if you can't help yourself, go help others. So those are also, this is the positive way. Today we have to do that work in a more positive way. And because we can't handle, we have enough things around us that crushes us, and we can't handle that harshness. It's that severity. This is actually was said by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, in his time, it worked. But the Lubavitcher, because they were able to handle severity that today we can't handle. We're much more, we're weaker.
Cannot go and tell somebody something. It's not.
And even to ourselves.
On parle de nous, là, de nous-mêmes à nous-mêmes.
But at least we should be aware. At least we should be aware of what can happen to us, of that ego, where it comes from, how to get rid of it. And today we have a positive way. We can fight it with positivity by being really joyous, by being really giving and loving.
God is good, and He teaches us the hard way how. I can say one thing. If God wants to teach you something, you have it.
That's the best.
That's hard.
You learn something by
You
experience.
learn by experience. You learn by inside you. You go to hell. Then when you come
never
back,
lose.
you come
win
back
or you
this
learn.
this high.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hein?
But the most important is to know to come out better than before.
Yeah.
It's important.
Exactement.
And also,
Exactement.
one last thing that back to the sadness that you can feel when you're humbled, okay, in a situation where unfortunately you learned it through outside circumstances and you feel sad about it. When you have that determination to come a better person out of this, when you're sad, you're so broken from whatever happened, but you have that determination, this is where you know it's a good sadness.
And you're gonna feel a stronger.
And you're
joy
going to be
again.
a better person, and you're going to feel a better joy.
This
The
I
sadness that comes from humility, from being humbled by a situation, is a sadness that is associated with determination. There's good in it, and it will bring you to be a better person.
And like she said, light is always light follows always darkness after that. So
Darkness after darkness, light comes up.
But
Yeah.
it's like,
Ce que je veux dire par là,
come
c'est-
back. It
Yeah.
can still come back, but
c'est un
you're through
cycle.
it.
Tu vas finir par voir la lumière. Reste pas dans la noirceur. Là. Accepte-la, mais sors de la noirceur. C'est sûr. Il y a
Yeah.
des gens qui vont rester dans cette sadness and everything.
Because they don't know how to get out. They get locked in. But when we understand that it's all fake,
No,
when you
people
tell a
have to
person that
choose.
there's no substance, it's like darkness. It's already, it's like it wakes up a person, you know. Like, don't make it something. It says when you stereotype like a person, they're stuck in their like stereotype, and they can't get out of it. But when you make them realize that it's all fake. That someone created this box
Ça
and
aussi,
you went
c'est
inside.
délicat. C'est très délicat parce qu'ils vont te dire alors tu ressens pas ce que je ressens, quelqu'un qui est déprimé, quelqu'un
No,
qui a
so
vécu un
you
deuil,
really
quelqu'un qui a
no.
vécu-
So
You know
that's
what I mean?
wait. So that's where the difference comes. Pain is real. It's your
Pain is real.
perspective on the pain is not real.
C'est
Do you
quoi la
understand the
différence?
difference?
Non,
The difference is you really feel the pain. You
Yeah.
really are sad.
So what is
But
that?
your perspective is that you have to stay in that box. You have to stay there, that there's nothing good out of it. Once you change your perspective and you realize that pain was in order to make you a better person, that pain is not there to stay, that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel.
Ouais.
This is where you can connect to the determination within you, and you have to. The worst is when a person doesn't have that hope. He has the pain and il a pas d'espoir.
C'est le fond
He's
du
just
baril.
going-
C'est le
he
fond du
goes-
baril. Tout le monde
exactly.
peut toucher le fond du baril.
So yeah, but
I
sometimes
tried to
there's
say
no
that to the
bottom.
mother that
Sometimes
just
there's
lost
no
her
bottom.
son.
I will never
For-
tell that to
No,
her.
anyone cannot tell her for the next.
No.
I will
Yeah.
not tell her.
La
It's
personne
not
qui
my
peut lui dire
job.
vraiment- Non, pas toi.
For sure, it's
anyone
not
that-
anyone's job.
You know what I mean?
And she said
It
it.
is sadness. She's gonna stay in there for
And it's something she shouldn't
maybe
accept.
forever.
No, hopefully not. So
Je
that's the
lui
thing. I
souhaite
don't
pas,
believe that
mais-
she should stay there
Mais
forever.
c'est l'enfer. Qu'est-ce que
It's-
c'est ça de...
yeah.
Voilà.
C'est l'enfer.
C'est
And
horrible,
it's-
ça existe.
And it's
l'enfer.
very painful, and it's not something that's the beauty of the Tanya. It doesn't tell you to not accept the pain, that it's not true. But it's that shell that blocks you from going above that pain. There's a day where anyone who goes through anything like that will have to break through that shell. And that's what the Alter Rebbe teaches us, that we have to break through that shell and believe that we can't be stuck in it. It's just going to bring us lower with no bottom. Il n'y a pas de fond to these things. It just goes down and down. You have to break through and believe that there's some good at the end of the tunnel. So yes, feel the pain, embrace the pain, know that this is not fake feelings you're feeling, but there's something more to it. Try to connect to the goodness. Try to be determined to rise above it. Change your perspective. Connect. Find the deeper connection and the deeper good that God was really giving you. But that's, again, it's a personal work. You don't tell that to someone.
And it doesn't happen immediately. It takes time.
Yeah.
Everybody has to go through his time.
Exactly. But so now we did until chapter 31. Chapter 32 in Hebrew is Lamed Bet, which is Lev. And it's actually one of the most beautiful parak that talks about love. After sadness, after you overcome this sadness, this anxiety, these depression, these thoughts that bring you down, once you're able to overcome that, you're able to feel real love. And in chapter 32, next week, we're going to learn about what is loving a fellow Jew, all about the emotion of love. So thank you very much. Thank you, Cheryl. And we'll see you next week.